The Price of Silence. Chapter 1, The Weight of 5 Years. 5 years sounds survivable when you say it quickly. 5. A tidy number. Half a decade. The amount of time it takes to earn a degree, to build a small business, to fall in love and decide whether it was worth the risk. But 5 years inside a house that smells faintly of antiseptic and boiled vegetables is something else entirely. 5 years becomes a sediment that settles inside your lungs. It presses against the ribs. It makes breathing feel like work. Elena Vargas understood this on a Tuesday morning in late March, though she would not name it until much later. She woke at 4:27 a.m., 3 minutes before her alarm. She always did. Her body no longer needed reminders, it had become its own clock, tuned to medication cycles and muscle spasms and the subtle shift in breathing that meant Adrian might need to be turned before the pressure sores returned. The room was dark except for the dim blue glow of the medical monitor beside the bed. Adrian slept flat on his back, mouth slightly open, one arm angled stiffly across his chest. Even in sleep, there was tension in him now, a coiled irritation that had replaced the easy charm he once carried like a cologne. Elena lay still for a moment, listening. The house made small sounds. The refrigerator hummed. A pipe ticked in the walls. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck rolled past. There had been a time when mornings meant possibility. Now they meant protocol. She slipped from the bed carefully, her bare feet touching the cold hardwood floor. Her spine protested immediately, a sharp reminder of yesterday's transfers from wheelchair to shower chair to car to hospital recliner and back again. In the bathroom mirror, she caught a glimpse of herself beneath the harsh light. Her hair, once thick and glossy, was pulled into a loose braid she rarely bothered to redo properly. The skin beneath her eyes held a permanent violet shadow. A small vertical line had formed between her brows from years of squinting at insurance forms and medication instructions. She touched that line gently. When had that appeared? She used to sketch cityscapes for pleasure. She used to stay up late drafting pedestrian walkways and eco-friendly housing designs, convinced she would help shape skylines one day. Now her hands were shaped by wheelchair grips. By latex gloves. By lifting. She washed her face, tied her hair into a tighter knot, and began the morning routine. By 4:45 a.m., she had measured out Adrian's medications into a small white cup. At 5 o'clock, she checked his catheter line. At 5:10, she reheated the low-sodium vegetable broth she had prepared the night before. The movements required no thought. She could perform them half asleep. Sometimes she did. When she returned to the bedroom, Adrian's eyes were open. "You're late," he said flatly. She glanced at the clock. 5:12. "I woke up early," she replied softly. "I was organizing your afternoon schedule." He made a small dismissive sound. "I barely slept. My shoulder hurts." "I'll adjust the pillow." She slid her arms beneath him with practiced precision, counting under her breath as she shifted his weight. One wrong angle could mean strain, hers or his. She moved carefully, efficiently, like a nurse trained for this specific body. When she finished, she stepped back slightly. "Better?" He exhaled. "I guess." 5 years ago, he would have said thank you. 5 years ago, she would have noticed. After breakfast and morning hygiene, she rolled him toward the living room where sunlight crept cautiously through half-drawn blinds. The house had changed shape after the accident. Doorways widened. Furniture removed. Ramps installed. Rugs taken up. Their wedding photos still hung on the hallway wall. Adrian standing tall, Elena leaning into him, both laughing at something outside the camera's frame. Visitors often commented on how beautiful they looked. No one ever asked what it cost to maintain that image. Adrian stared at the television while Elena packed the bag for his physical therapy session at San Aurelio Rehabilitation Institute. Spare gloves. Insurance documents. Water bottle. Emergency contact list. The list always made her pause. Her name sat alone beneath the word primary. No one else volunteered. Not his older brother Matteo, who lived 2 towns away and sent occasional texts. Not his 22-year-old daughter, Camila, who visited when convenient and treated Elena like part of the furniture. Elena had once believed that devotion earned permanence. Now she wasn't sure what it earned. The drive to the institute took 22 minutes without traffic. Elena drove in silence while Adrian scrolled through his phone. Occasionally he would sigh, the sound heavy with unspoken dissatisfaction. "What?" she asked finally. "Nothing," he said. "Just reading about a guy who started a consulting firm from home. Made 6 figures in 2 years." "That's great," she said gently. He glanced at her. "Some people don't let setbacks define them." The words lingered between them. Elena nodded once. She did not point out that she had abandoned graduate school 3 weeks after the accident. She did not mention the job offer she declined because someone needed to stay home full-time. She did not say that she, too, had experienced a setback. Instead, she turned into the parking lot. Inside the rehabilitation center, everything smelled faintly of antiseptic and industrial cleaner. The lighting was too bright. The floors too polished. Hope lived here, but so did resignation. Elena checked Adrian in at the front desk. The receptionist smiled at her warmly. "You're incredible," the woman said quietly while Adrian spoke with a therapist across the room. "The way you care for him." Elena smiled back automatically. "Thank you." She wondered what the woman would think if she admitted that some mornings she imagined driving past the institute and not stopping. Just once. Just to see how it felt. While Adrian attended therapy, Elena sat in the waiting area with her laptop open. She tried to work on a freelance drafting project she'd accepted weeks ago, her first paid design task in years. But her concentration fractured easily. Every raised voice down the hall made her body tense. Every call of assistance needed sent a flicker of adrenaline through her bloodstream. She lived in a state of permanent readiness. As though disaster were always mid-breath. After 2 hours, Adrian emerged, exhausted and irritable. "They pushed too hard," he muttered. "They don't get it." Elena nodded sympathetically. "I'll make sure you rest this afternoon." He did not ask about her morning. He did not notice the laptop still open on her knees. On the drive home, rain began to fall. Thin at first, then steady. Elena watched droplets gather on the windshield and slide downward in quiet surrender. She felt something similar inside herself. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just a slow erosion. 5 years. 5 years of adjusting pillows. 5 years of swallowing frustration. 5 years of telling herself love required endurance. As she turned onto their street, she realized she could not remember the last time someone had asked her what she wanted. Not what Adrian needed. Not what insurance required. Not what doctors recommended. What she wanted. The thought felt foreign. Almost selfish. She parked the car, stepped out into the rain, and walked around to unload the wheelchair ramp. For a brief second, just one, she stood there with water soaking into her sweater and imagined something reckless. She imagined leaving the car running. Walking down the street. Not turning back. The fantasy lasted less than a heartbeat. Then she lowered the ramp. Helped Adrian out. Closed the door behind them. And resumed her role. But something small had shifted. Not yet anger. Not yet rebellion. Just awareness. And awareness, once born, does not die quietly. By the end of that Tuesday, Elena lay awake beside Adrian's bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent. Her body ached in familiar places. But beneath the exhaustion, something else pulsed softly. A question. Not loud enough to disrupt. Not strong enough to act upon. Yet. How much of a person can disappear before there's nothing left to save? She did not know the answer. But somewhere inside her, a part that had been dormant for years opened its eyes and began to watch. Chapter 2: The Man Who Made Rooms Brighter. Before the hospital corridors and medication alarms, before the quiet erosion of self, there was a ballroom filled with amber light. Elena had almost not attended the fundraiser. She had an urban design presentation due the following week and 3 unfinished drafts spread across her apartment table. But her friend Valeria insisted. "You spend all your time drawing buildings," Valeria had said. "Come meet people who actually live in them." So Elena borrowed a navy dress from her sister and attended the Santa Leora Waterfront Renewal Gala, a charity event for restoring historic districts near the harbor. That was where she first saw Adrian Navarro. He wasn't the loudest man in the room. He didn't need to be. He stood near the balcony overlooking the water, one hand resting lightly on the railing, speaking to 2 investors who appeared completely absorbed. He wore a charcoal suit tailored precisely enough to suggest intention without arrogance. His voice carried warmth rather than volume. Elena noticed something else. When he listened, he leaned in slightly, as if what the other person was saying mattered deeply. That detail disarmed her. Valeria nudged her. "He's been looking at you for the last 5 minutes." Elena rolled her eyes. "No, he hasn't." He had. They were introduced near the dessert table. "Adrian Navarro," he said, extending his hand. "Elena Vargas." His handshake was firm but unhurried. His eyes lingered just long enough to feel deliberate. "You're the architect," he said. "Urban design," she corrected lightly. "Even better," he replied. "You shape the future instead of decorating it." The compliment landed cleanly. Not exaggerated. Not crude. Precise. That was Adrian's gift. Precision and attention. He asked about her graduate program. About sustainable housing. About why she chose city planning instead of high-rise luxury design. When she answered, he listened without interrupting. Most men she met waited for their turn to speak. Adrian seemed to wait to understand. By the end of the evening, he had walked her to the balcony and asked for her number without hesitation. "I don't believe in waiting 3 days," he said. "I prefer clarity." It felt refreshing. Decisive. Safe. Their first date was coffee. The second was dinner by the harbor. By the third, Adrian had memorized her order at her favorite cafe. He sent good morning texts. He asked about her deadlines. He showed up with soup when she had a cold. Attentiveness, Elena would later learn, can feel indistinguishable from devotion. Within 4 months, Adrian had met her family. Her mother adored him. "He looks at you like you're the only person in the room," her mother whispered once in the kitchen. Elena glowed under the observation. There were small things, of course. Tiny moments that flickered at the edges of her awareness. He preferred choosing the restaurant. He subtly redirected conversations back to himself. He joked about how driven she was. "Don't forget to make time for me when you're famous." But it was said playfully. And Elena had grown up believing love required compromise. The first real crack appeared 6 months into their relationship. Elena received an email offering her a summer research placement in Barcelona, an urban sustainability project she had applied for on a whim. It was competitive. Prestigious. 3 months abroad. She told Adrian over dinner, excitement spilling out before she could contain it. He smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. "That's incredible," he said carefully. She waited for more. "But..." He swirled his wine. "I just didn't realize you were planning to leave." "It's temporary," she said quickly. "Just a summer." "And what happens to us?" The question sounded reasonable. Responsible, even. Elena hesitated. "We'd manage. Flights aren't that expensive." He leaned back. "I guess I thought we were building something serious." The sentence settled heavily between them. Serious. As though ambition and love could not coexist. She declined the placement the following week. He didn't ask her to. He didn't have to. They married 18 months after meeting. The ceremony took place on the same waterfront where they'd had their third date. Lanterns floated above the dock. Music drifted across the water. Adrian held her hands and promised partnership. Promised support. Promised forever. Elena believed him with the unguarded certainty of someone who has never had reason not to. On their honeymoon, he told her, "I've never trusted anyone the way I trust you." She felt chosen. Special. Essential. It would take years before she understood that being essential to someone who needs control is not the same as being loved. In the early months of marriage, their life felt expansive. They hosted dinners. Planned trips. Spoke about children. Adrian worked long hours in corporate logistics management, steadily climbing the ladder. Elena continued her graduate program, though she noticed he rarely attended her presentations. He always had a reason. A meeting. A flight delay. An urgent call. "You know I support you," he would say. "I just can't always be there physically." She accepted that explanation. She accepted many things. Because love, she believed, meant understanding. The night before the accident, they argued. It was small. Insignificant. Elena had mentioned applying for a design fellowship in another state, a 2-year program that would require relocation. Adrian had gone quiet. "You're serious?" he asked. "It's just an application. And if you get it? We'd talk about it." He stared at her for a long moment. "I thought we agreed this city was home." "We did. But opportunities." "So your career always comes first?" The accusation startled her. "That's not fair." He stood abruptly. "Forget it. I have an early drive tomorrow." He left before she could finish. Elena went to bed unsettled. They did not resolve it. The next afternoon, Serrano Pass was slick with rain. And everything changed. In the hospital waiting room, when doctors explained the spinal cord damage, Adrian squeezed her hand with desperate force. "Don't leave me," he whispered. "I won't," she promised immediately. And she meant it. Because she still believed love was proven in endurance. She did not yet understand that promises made in crisis can become cages. 5 years later, standing in their modified living room while Adrian criticized her for being late by 2 minutes, Elena sometimes thought back to that ballroom. To the man who leaned in when she spoke. To the warmth in his gaze. She wondered which version was real. The attentive partner. Or the man who resented any future that did not orbit him. Perhaps both. Perhaps charm and control had always lived side by side. She simply hadn't known how to tell the difference. But awareness, once awakened, sharpens memory. And Elena was beginning, slowly, to remember everything.